We're going underground in a mine. And
Hold on to the
slippery.
rail, Andrea. That rail ran out.
Ah!
Anybody ever slipped here?
If I was wearing my Crocs, I would. Hey, I don't get service here.
I wonder why. We
Show
slipped.
your eye.
Oh my God, isn't it pretty? We're coming. I'm afraid I'm gonna fall.
Well, so far in 20 years, the only one that had all
Oh,
my
really?
clothes wearing high heels.
Well, leave me first. Oh my God, it's beautiful. I love it.
We are now standing in the biggest gold mine ever built this side of Mississippi. Built means there's no caves, no caverns. They're man-made tunnels. Blasted up with dynamite looking for gold. So every place there's air used to be solid rock. Blasted out with dynamite 100 years ago. Biggest mine ever built here. But quite a few folks, that's not impressive. Till they realize how many mines are here. Nice to have something to compare it by. A number at least. There's a strip of land. Runs an average of about 4 miles wide. Goes from Alabama all the way to Maine. So a 4-mile strip of land, the entire Appalachians where you find the gold. We call it a gold belt. And what made it are the 2 main fault lines that made the Appalachians. There's 2 faults running side by side, dividing everything up. One side caves and caverns, other side gemstones. We're between them, so all we got is gold. The main section is the 5 lower states. Alabama, Georgia, both the Carolinas, and Virginia. Those 5 states have 1,457 gold mines. Half are in Georgia. Half of those, Lumpkin County. So we got a quarter of all the mines in 5 states. That's why it's named after us. The Dahlonega Gold Belt. Total of the Appalachians, nearly 3,000 gold mines. We have an eighth of that. We almost got called El Dorado County. And out of 3,000, this one's the biggest. Makes being the biggest just a bit more impressive. But what's really impressive, how long it took them to do it. They began mining down here in 1900. Shut the place down 1906. They've done the entire thing in just 6 years. What they've done here in 6 years, I call it just about impossible. What they didn't do was find any veins of gold. Because that is impossible. No such thing. They don't exist. They're on TV. That's why I stopped watching TV over 10 years ago. What you look for are veins of quartz with the gold ore. What they found down here was several big veins run together to form a giant one. Usually only 2 or 3 inches thick, quite often small as a hair. This one was 22 feet thick, filled up this. Here's where it was. Top to bottom, side to side. This entire area was solid quartz containing gold. This is still today about the biggest ever found on Earth. How much gold they got, we don't know. Those papers all burn up somehow when they shut down. Of all of our research, so far we found 1 day for that entire 6 years. Happened in January 1901. So one day a reporter come down here doing a story about the place. He heard about this mine being the most modern mine in the world. So he wanted to see it and write about it for a mining journal. He saw what they got, wrote it down. And they kept the only day for the whole 6 years, we know for sure what they got. There's a bunch of days in 6 years. We got 1. So that means a bunch of days might be better, and probably are. We can't call it a record day when it's the only day we know for sure. Here's where it happened. Somewhere from this big hole in 1 day, he witnessed taking out a total 54 pounds of pure gold. 54 pounds. Back then was $18 an ounce. So he wrote down for it $12,500. Now roughly $1,600 an ounce. Roughly $1 million. It's about $1 million out of here in 1 day. Now, how many here recall that, a glorious day? When that reporter saw it, and this area, he said just one thing, and I bet the only thing he could say. He stepped in, looked up, and said, glory, what a hole. So for 110 years, we've called it the glory hole. Now, as we head down, I'm pretty sure y'all familiar with stalactites, the columns and caves and caverns, or they're in tunnels too, if they're old enough. They take an average of 100 years to grow an inch per century. We got them. They're on the small side, but we got them. The biggest one already got broken. When he touched it, knocked it off, destroyed 100 years in age. This Aries Mu, that was made to get tours in. All this down here is 100 years old. So down here, if you please, don't touch the walls or ceilings. You tall folks, watch your head, because we got a spot down here and get your attention real quick. I used to be 6'2".
Used to be. Watch it's raining.
Isn't that beautiful?
Oh yeah. Watch your head here.
Upstairs in the panning area, I hear two things every day, always before 12 noon. With about 140 kids, probably quite a few times. The first thing I hear every day, I'm going to find a big nut. That was mostly the parents. And next, is that it? If you add up all the world's gold, I'm talking all the gold ever mined, ever known to man in the history of gold, only 3% you can see. Only 3% of the world's gold is actually big enough to see it. Nuggets are a tiny part of a little bitty 3%, which means any time you find gold you can see, you're in the top 3%, so it's actually pretty good. It's that 97% that you can't see. Smaller than powder, smaller than dust, microscopic. Now you can't use a pan or a sluice box, any water method to get it. Mining here 100 years ago, they couldn't see it until after it's all processed. The gold gathered up, melted down. Right now, there's about 10 billion tons of gold in seawater with the salt you can't see. So if you've ever swum in the ocean, you swim with 10 billion tons of gold. Pretty cool. Now, I compete in the gold panning contest. I'm world champion 5 times. I set a record for the Guinness Book. I'm in the Gold Panners Hall of Fame. I have a total of 89 titles. I set 2 records panning blindfolded. Some contests make me do it blindfolded. So basically, I'm the fastest, most accurate panner in the world. I can do things with a pan the experts wouldn't think possible. But I can't pan that 97%. That stuff is so fine, it'll float out, never know you had it. So that became the first problem. Find gold they can't see. They found it here the same way they did up there, by weight. It's at the bottom of your pan because it's heaviest, with the black stuff, mostly iron. The sand itself is mostly quartz. The gold is with the iron in the quartz. They discovered the same thing here. So first you find the quartz, that part pretty easy. You can't see the gold, so they figure in rivers and streams we look for the iron. In the gold pan, get to the iron. Let's continue that. Look for the iron called pyrite. All that shiny stuff, real, genuine fool's gold. Gold is different than any other metal. 2 main things. Gold don't rust. So when you find gold, it looks exactly the way it's supposed to. Yellow metal. And second, the molecules absorb light, don't reflect it like other metals. Which means it's not shiny or glittery. So you can actually see it better in the shade. That's ever too shiny and not even yellow. It'll fool you. That's why they call it fool's gold. They know exactly what it was. A mixture of iron. There's your heavy stuff. That's where you found the gold. Couldn't see it, but you had to track it down. Looking for the next heaviest that is found with. So when you find the heavy stuff, they drill holes around it, dynamite in, blast it out, cart it to a stamp mill to stamp it down, crush it to a powder, like flour. Around 2,000 years ago, in Spain, they discovered gold will stick to mercury. But all that sticks to mercury is gold. It worked out pretty good. So they wash everything slowly across mercury. The gold stuck, everything else washed out. And by burning off the mercury, you melt down that microscopic gold, you're done. So blast it out, crush it up, let mercury get it for you. But these are about the oldest mountains in the world. That makes a problem here in the Dahlonega belt that mines don't have anywhere else in the world. And the mines here in the belt, till these guys come along, didn't know it. See, in this area, we're below the water table where it stays wet. Iron is rusty, stuff gets coated. Now, if the gold is coated, you can't touch the mercury. And once you're below the water table in the gold area, even a pyrite can contain gold. We found stuff here up to 30% gold. Can't touch the mercury. Can't touch, can't stick. So mine's lost over a half their gold and didn't know it. Lost up to 90% thinking they got it all, or most of it. With that effective mercury process, they were losing most of it. This mine helped discover that problem and the way to fix it. They called it a chemical problem, so fixed it chemically. The pyrite was roasted. That burned out the sulfur, dissolve it down, takes a mixture of chemicals, and take the gold from solution. It was a long, complicated, dangerous process, 95% recovery. They claimed double the gold for the same rock. And it was cheap. Gold, $18 an ounce. Paying like 10 to get it. Make it $8 an ounce, getting double the gold. That's pretty nice. They said, what can go wrong? And that's when they messed it up, shouldn't have said that. After mining 6 years, they found a problem they couldn't fix. They discovered, they figured wrong. They're not paying 10, they're paying 24. They're not making 8, they're backing up 6. They're $175,000 in debt, bankrupt by getting double the gold. Because the process cost more than the gold did, shut the place down. So no mining here for 100 years, not commercially in Georgia since 1939. Some tried it, but none made it because of a spot of rust below the water table. Because of that, the mines here are the most expensive in the world just to operate. We could mine gold out of here about forever. There's more gold around here than you can possibly imagine. I've done this for 24 years, so I can imagine a bunch. But counting everything involved to get it, you can still buy it cheaper. We call this the wishing rock. Hit your head, wish you hadn't.
Watch your head.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry anyway.
Everything we do here is done by ourselves and all three of them. Now, they first found a giant vein up on top of the mountain where we first come in. When everything was washed away with the water cannons and found another problem, they can't blast down to get to gold. You drop below the water table. A bunch of underground springs, You might as well dig a hole on the beach. Blasting down to get the gold, this place filled with water. So they never come down here to get it. They came up here. Right now, we are 7 stories underground. They came up here. That means you can't start on the top. They started a half mile away, by the river, in the valley, other side of the mountain, at a lower point. Blasted through the mountain of solid rock, half a mile, and hit the vein on its side. So the glory hole is the exit where they broke out. Their entrance is a half mile down its right-hand tunnel, blasting up to bring it down to them. Even to get here, blasting all the way through every step uphill, drain the water out the other end. Tracks are 100 years old. What they put down to the mining cars, ore carts. These empty carts weigh about 400 pounds, full of rock, about a ton. It's a good thing it's all downhill outside. All the buildings, the giant stamp mill, roasting, chemicals, their whole process was put in the valley on the other side. That was the entrance, that was downhill. It might be 7 stories down, but it was the same idea as a water cannon. Bring it down to them. Except for one thing, there's always something. The empty ore carts half mile down there, because you got to get them half mile back up here.
Well, we didn't stop at that other one.
Yeah.
This is interesting.
All right, gather around, hold your head, and look up. Glory, what a hole. Again, we're 7 stories underground. In a moment, when we pass this point, we'll be under the hillside. 12 stories underground. 7 stories like that.
Look at the light.
Yeah.
How many here think a stick can hold that up? How many timbers have you seen hold this place up? You guys didn't use them. Now, in 24 years in a few countries, there's one thing I've heard quite a few times. Solid rock, so you don't need support. You got to have it, especially for solid rock. They didn't trust wood, didn't trust metal. They put nothing in to hold this place up. The wrist support, got to have it. They didn't put it here. It's already here. Solid rock. That's what they used to make their support in the form of columns. But they skipped that spot on purpose, blasting around that area, make a column of solid rock, and let the mine support itself. Sometimes a column like that, or a wall down here. Because whatever you leave in is more stable than putting something here. No shift against it when it blasts, worked out pretty good. Except for one of those little things. That column is part of that giant vein. There's a bunch of gold under there. Before I tell you how much, give you an idea what most mines get for that much rock. Now, any of you been your panning already?
Not yet.
Well, when you pan for gold up there, you'll get a little bottle, put your gold in. Everybody gets at least a little bit. When that bottle filled up is 1 ounce, be worth about $1,600. But it takes a mine today, an average, 4 tons of rock to get that 1 ounce. 8,000 pounds of rock for an ounce of gold. So the world's average for a commercial mine is only a 1/4 ounce per ton. Based on that rock could be worth around $2,300. You get paid just about that to buy it as gravel. Our testing shows 3 ounces per ton. That's 12 times the world's average. Right there, right now, about 30,000 bucks. So you're like 2,300 or 30,000. Now, for a lot of years, it's been very tempting. By holding up the whole place, I won't be the one to get it out. Here on the ceiling is a glass insulator, which for this one you have in just a moment. But first down on the floor. On off in the snake into the track switch. Track bender. Used to bend the track around the curves as they first put them down. It's what we used to bend all the rebar up there for the handrails. Anybody ever seen a rebar that big? You're trying to bend the stuff. Of course, we had some heat to it, that helped out. We've not found that evidence on the tracks.
Yes,
So that means all this track was cold bent by hand. Track bender. And the track switch. Of course, right now it's kind of stuck on that left-hand tunnel. But to do any good
Oh,
anyway,
here's the track switch.
you gotta bring those 400-pound ore carts half mile back up here. You have two choices: push them, or horsepower. You got the horsepower, plenty of it, not a single horse. This mine had the same two goals as any company: get rich. That ain't working. And be the best. But to be the best, you gotta have the best. Architects, engineers, and GE. Here's an insulator made by General Electric, September 1891. Electric horsepower, DC rail. You guys ever have bumper cars? Put that sparky thing on a mining car. Little tube on the bottom, was holding a copper wire out to a water wheel. Wires are positive, traction negative, there's your battery. In front, electric trail.
I want to live down
Actually, I
here.
showed you one on the video there. Little rod flipped up, took that wire on top, no sparky, power to move them back and forth. Little electric train. And how about lights 100 years ago? Candles, lanterns, well, that's primitive and old fashioned. They said that 100 years ago. There's little carbides on hats. They weren't invented until 1913. Nope, didn't have those yet. They had more electric light down here than we got today. Edison bulbs here. The glass one was that lighting system. Simply wrap your wires in the tunnel, and your lights as you go. The extra power was sold to town beginning May of 1900. So next month, we'll have power on the whole town square of the Wamaka for 112 years. Now that's 30, 40, 50 years before some people, some countries ever heard about it. Pretty good system, pretty impressive. One look at you. His name is Thomas Edison. Never heard of him? Well, 10 years ago, right after I stopped watching TV, I actually met some of his family. And I have permission to tell you something you won't find in any history book. The adults here have probably got this figured out. By his whole family, I've got permission to say it. Thomas Edison was nuts.